right, everybody. Welcome to Small Town Underground. This is a special interview episode that we're doing here. This is Monday, July 21st, and I've got a special guest live with me in studio. And he's from Memphis, Tennessee. His name is Joe Wolverton, and he works with the John Birch Society. He's the Senior Director of Publishing for the John Birch Society, and he's also the President of Western Island Publishing. So he stopped through today. He's coming into Georgia to check out our swamp, and we're very lucky and blessed to have him stop by the studio today. So welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. I'm happy to be here and love being down here. I've been, like I was telling you earlier, I've been down here a couple of times when I was a lawyer. I had a few cases down this direction. Worked out of Chattanooga and had a couple opportunities to come down here. So,
right.
It's not my first time, but my first time here with you, and love the name of the show, by the way. The name of the show is really good. Like it.
Well,
Small Town Underground. That's what it's going to take, to get this done.
That's true. I certainly didn't expect this to go on for as long as it has, but it keeps growing, so we're just going to keep rolling with it.
Keep doing it.
So kind of give us a little bit of your history. I know you've been very involved with the John Birch Society. Kind of bring us up to speed what you've done, kind of what led you to where you're at right now.
Yeah, so in college I went to a meeting. I can't remember the name of it. I think it was called College Conservatives. It was something like that, and heard Bill Jasper of the William Jasper speak, and I think as I recall, I joined that very night, 1988, and just stayed active in my chapter at college, and then after college, just stayed active. My parents at that time were living in Clarksville, Tennessee,
okay,
and I was up there and just active and doing the thing, and then I had finished law school in Memphis, I remember, and then a friend of mine called me and asked if I'd be interested in writing something for the New American. And I thought, well, yeah, that'd be cool, but how would I go about doing that? And he informed me that his dad was the CEO of the John Birch Society.
Right.
And we had been friends in college, and I said, sure. And so that was 2004, and I've been writing for the New American ever since. Right. And then that turned into doing lots of things, going on speaking tours for the John Birch Society. Did that for a long time. And then I taught at University in Chattanooga.
Okay.
Yeah, I taught law and political science. And then I taught at a high school in Arizona, which is a crazy thing to go from college to high school. But I was at an event in St. Louis, and just so the tornado went through, and they went to their backup support for their what they call generator, and happened to be there was one elevator for everybody, so they just shoved everybody in as much as they could. And I was in there with a guy who owned a chain of charter schools in Arizona, and he said, "Hey, I heard you speak. Do you ever think about teaching high school?" And I said, "No." I said, "I don't like poverty," and he just laughed. He said, "Well, give me a call if you're ever in Arizona." Long story short, I ended up teaching high school at one of his schools, charter schools in Arizona, and then ended up doing my own thing, publishing books, and I published several. I think now I have 5 or 6 books.
Wow.
That I've written. The last couple have been through JBS, because for the last year and a half I've been on the full-time staff of the John Birch Society, like you said.
Gotcha.
And before that, I was just freelancing for the New American. And I taught, I should say, online via Zoom. I taught a class on the 37 men most often quoted by the Founding Fathers, whose most of their names nobody knows today. Gotcha. And so I would teach that, and I still do. They actually asked me to teach it for FPA, Freedom Project Academy, which is the homeschool arm of the John Birch Society, and asked if I would teach it. So I still teach that class every Wednesday afternoon.
Wow.
I teach via Zoom, or I guess it's via something like Zoom.
Right.
I teach that class on the men most often quoted by the Founding Fathers that no one's ever heard of today, and it's a popular class. And that was it was actually my second book, but it was the one that's nearest and dearest to my heart. But then I wrote one, Make America States Again,
right?
About it was James Madison's method for forcing the federal beast back inside its constitutional cage. And because in Federalist 46, James Madison explained if Americans ever get crazy enough, he said, which we won't,
Right.
but he was answering Patrick Henry's accusation that the Constitution that was proposed in 1787 was going to create a tyrannical government eventually.
Right.
Because Patrick Henry said, I've studied history, and every republic, the people always lose their virtue, and once you lose your virtue, you lose your republic. And James Madison said, Americans are different. We're not going to lose our virtue. And he says, but if we do, let's suppose, he says, we do lose our virtue. Here are 6 signs that we've lost our virtue and are losing our republic, and that the federal government has become tyrannical. He says, if you notice these things have happened, here are weapons, he says, constitutional weapons to fight back against a tyrannical federal government. So I wrote a book because I reckoned, and I learned during my time as a teacher, professor, and just a speaker, that people probably won't read Federalist 46. And the ones that do, I would say a majority of them don't really understand it.
Okay.
So I thought, what better thing to do than to put it into words that everyone can understand?
Right.
And so that's what I did. Because people kept telling me that, you ought to put that in, you ought to rewrite that in modern language. So I don't know how many years ago it's been now, I did that. I took Federalist 46 and I called it What Degree of Madness is the name of the book. What Degree of Madness? Because that's the phrase Madison used. He's like, how crazy, because madness meaning crazy. He's like, how crazy do you think Americans would be to let their federal government become more powerful than the state government? He's like, that would never happen. And so now that we see, and the first part of the book is I go through how we just blew right through those 6 things that he said would never happen.
Right.
Yeah, they blew right through those.
We're way past
Wait. Yeah, that's so far in the rear view we can't even see it anymore.
Right.
But the second half of the book, which is something most authors don't do, anybody can tell you the problems. But in the second half of the book, I explain what Madison offered in Federalist 46 as the solution.
Okay.
How do you force the federal government back inside the constitutional cage? And he says, here's how you do it. And so when I got hired on full time to the John Birch Society, they took the 37 most often quoted guys, that I called that the founder's recipe.
Okay.
Because it's the 37 ingredients that make a Madison, so to speak. And they took that, and then they took my Make America States Again book, The What Degree of Madness, and made that, official John Birch Society missions.
Wow. Okay.
To educate people.
Wow.
So I, here in Georgia, and then I'm going up to South Carolina after Georgia, talking about not only the 37 men most often quoted by the founding generation, but also going to be talking about how we can restore power to the states.
Right.
And that's a huge deal because right now, as I see it, that's our only hope to preserve our liberty long term.
Right.
Is to restore sovereignty to the states.
Gotcha.
Because right now, I just read an article last night, for example, saying how, even the reddest of red states get, on average, about 38% of their budget from the federal government.
Right. Yes.
Right? And you've got it up to 70% in some places. And so we've got to find a way to restore sovereignty, at least to those states where the people want to be free. Because the way I look at it is like this. When I was a teacher and I'd give a test, and we both have experienced this as students. You'd get a test, you'd finish it, and you'd look around waiting for the first guy to turn his test in. Nobody wants to be but once that first kid turns in his test, all of a sudden 20 kids are done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? When someone breaks that seal, then everybody else suddenly has enough courage to do it.
Right.
So I think that's true with state sovereignty. Once you have a state, any state, that has the state legislators and the people courageous enough to say no to the federal government for anything that exceeds the federal government's constitutional authority, I think you'll see other states do that. And so my goal is to go to all the states and find that one that will say, but you know what? If it's inside the Constitution, we have an obligation to go along with that.
Right.
But any act of the federal government that exceeds its constitutional authority is, as Madison said, null, void, and of no effect, and should be treated as tyranny.
Right.
And I think we just got to find enough people. And the John Birch Society, man, to be real honest with you, first of all, we've called all the right shots for the past 60-something years.
Oh, I would agree.
I mean, Alex Jones himself the other day said, here we were making fun of the John Birch Society about their conspiracy theories, and now they've all turned out to be conspiracy facts.
Exactly.
And we've been calling that for a long time because our founder saw it, and then subsequent leaders saw it as well. And one of the things that Madison says is in Federalist 46 is you got to find like-minded people, and you got to unite, and you got to communicate, right? And I think the John Birch Society is the best way to do that, because otherwise you've just got a bunch of individuals working without any concert, working without any cohesion, and you end up maybe pulling in different directions, even unwittingly. Whereas if you have an organization, because a lot of people that I meet, I don't know about you, Roy, but a lot of people I meet, they are like, I don't know where to start. I don't know how to influence government. There's no way I can influence government. Well, there is a way. And the best thing is to have resources and experience. Well, you join the John Birch Society, you've instantly got access to resources you never and
a ton.
You've got people who have experience, who can mentor you, who can help you and show you how you're able to actually influence legislation.
Right.
And I've seen it. I've traveled to not all 50 states, but about 38 states. And I see it all the time where we defeat, the John Birch Society is credited with defeating, unconstitutional acts in the different states because we're organized.
Yes.
And that's what it takes.
Wow. Yeah, you said a lot there.
Shocker.
I have to agree with you on a lot of this. Just where I started, I've told you before we started the interview, the John Birch Society has always been a dirty word around, and I started in the Second Amendment movement. Right, that's my passion, and I realized that in order to protect one part of that Constitution, you have to stand up for the entire thing.
That's right.
So hence we're here in what I call this political clown show. So far, I have learned from the John Birch Society that it's a slow battle because it's a culture change ultimately. Yeah. The example that I give, that Arthur Hampton and I talked about, that realization that somebody like Nancy Pelosi, right? If you're just term limiting these people out, you look at the example in New York right now with the mayoral race. That is a culture problem. Right. If those people, if you term limit those people, you're going to end up with either the same, if not worse. So I do think that the John Birch Society and the concentrating on the slow battle. Right. Is the right avenue to go down. As far as our constitutional power and versus our federal government, and I know you're from Tennessee. We're so close to the state line. We watch a lot of things from Tennessee. Right. Our government, state government, is vastly different in Georgia. We have one of the most powerful governors in the state. To me, in my opinion, it seems like that whether it's Republican or Democrat, it doesn't matter. It's more of a corporatocracy. So how in this day and age, can you give me an example of something that it seems like it's inevitable that we'll never beat this system, right? And we have so many people that are organizing, but how do we get a leg into this system?
Well, I think honestly, the first step is joining with other like-minded people. And now, I would suggest the John Birch Society because we've been around for over 60 years, and you can Google it and see how many people. I know on X, you even had, I think it was Elon Musk who retweeted Alex Jones saying, the John Birch Society, they're the OGs of this, of calling out this corporatocracy. I mean, we've been calling that out for years, how it's the uniparty system, right? It's GOP incorporated, right? Rather than being Republicans like it used to be, it's, like you say, it's a corporatocracy. And you can't do it by yourself. That's true. You can't do it by yourself. So the thing to do is find like-minded people. And the problem with that is, it's the old saying, too many cooks spoil the broth. Right. So what you want to do is you want to find someone who is a noted chef and be a sous chef to that. And the way you do that is through the John Birch Society, because who are you going to go to? Name another organization with the resources and the reach.
No, you're right
that
about
the John
that.
Birch Society has.
So the Freedom Index.
Right.
We have spread the Freedom Index far and wide over the state. It is one of the most powerful tools engaging your legislation by how constitutional they are.
Right.
I have looked at the other ones that gauge it on just meaningless stuff.
Yeah.
And so by far the Freedom Index is absolutely amazing. So that's one thing. You mentioned the New American. Can you explain to people what exactly the New American is?
Yeah, the New American is a magazine arm of the John Birch Society. It's published monthly, and it just contains articles, more in-depth explanation of things that are happening in the news for people that want to go deeper than just the headlines or the 140 characters of Twitter or X, whatever. And so we have really renowned writers who go in and say, let me give you remember Paul Harvey, the rest of the story. So kind of like that.
Right.
Every article is an in-depth examination of things happening in the news. Right. And it's called The New American, thenewamerican.com.
Yeah, it's
online.
a fantastic publication.
Oh, goodness. And well, you saw the other day, Alex Jones, he was rifling through it because he's like, look, one after the other, this magazine is teaching the stuff that no one else. And I don't know, why that is. I don't know why there has never been an organization on par with the John Birch Society. I don't know, but there isn't. And if there were, it would be known. And it isn't, because there are a lot of think tanks, the Heritage people, the Cato Institute, there are a lot of Mises Institute. There are a lot of think tanks. Right. But the John Birch Society is not a think tank. Right? We have actual local chapters that give you resources. Right? You can go to your chapter leader, and he can give you the resources you need to actually meet. And if you don't even want to leave your house, here's the template of a email to send your state rep and your state senator. Anything to feel like because doing even that is better than doing nothing. Right. Because if you've got 100 people who send an email, how long could that take? Right? Because it's already written. Right. You just got to cut and paste. You got 100 people doing that to a rep or a senator. That starts to get traction. And that's not a guess. That's the effect, because we see it time and time again. And you talk about the Freedom Index, and we've got state legislative scorecards that not only talk about your federal reps and senators, but talk about your local guys as well, your state reps and your state senators, which in my case, for example, my state senator has tanked, right? He's gone from a 92 down to a 67. Now, why? I have no idea what he's thinking, but he doesn't like it that I tell people.
Right. Of course not.
Right?
They don't like being graded. They don't like being held accountable.
That's it. They don't like being held accountable. So ultimately, tyrants are going to tyrant, man. That's what they do. It's like Montesquieu said, it's our sad experience that if you give a man a little power, he's going to take as much as you let him take. Right. You give him an inch and he'll take a mile if you're not watching. So whose job is it, Roy? If we're ruled over by tyrants, who's to blame for that?
It's us.
We're to blame.
Absolutely.
And the way we get rid of that, the way we atone for that, so to speak, is joining with people who can push back. Because I'm going to tell you, we've got to restore sovereignty to these states.
Right.
We have got to turn our back on the swamp in Washington, because neither you nor I have enough money to buy a congressman.
No.
Okay? But you and I and maybe 5 or 6 of your neighbors, that's enough to sway your state rep.
Right.
Because y'all have a part-time legislature like we do, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll put it to you even further than this. You know, the John Birch Society taught me that rather than just write off your legislator that you may not like or is not doing any good, you cannot approach them every time you don't like something with the pitchfork mentality. You need to keep an open dialogue with them. And I have since understood that, you know. So I do keep an open dialogue with my legislators.
And because you can do that.
Right.
And ultimately, you know, your state, you could have a situation where you've got enough legislators who will stand up and say no to federal. We see it all the time. It's like I tell people, because there are people who will, you know, challenge me and say, well, you know, that's unconstitutional. Well, first of all, that's ridiculous to say that states are obliged somehow constitutionally to enforce unconstitutional acts of the federal government. The Federalist Papers are very clear. The ratification debates in the states are very clear. No. The Constitution is a contract granting to the federal government enumerated powers. If they act outside those powers, the 10th Amendment clearly says anything outside the four corners of that document remain with the states and the people. So we do have that authority. And I've lived in Arizona and Idaho. Now in Arizona, you can go down the street and next to the Circle K is a dispensary where you can buy weed. Recreational marijuana is legal in any number of states. Well, that's against federal law. But there are no federal troops marching on Arizona or Colorado. In Idaho, where I lived, you can go to the grocery store and buy raw milk. That's also against federal law. There are no troops marching on Idaho. And both those states are still in the Union, and so is Colorado, and so is Wyoming, all of Missouri, Oklahoma. All of these states are still in the Union. They're all still peaceful, and they're all refusing to abide by unconstitutional acts of the federal government. That's all it takes.
Right.
And you can live free. Because I'm going to tell you what, you want to see a state that goes from zero to hero, you get that state where the people of that state who agree with you and me philosophically join together, influence their state legislature. If they're bad, don't vote for them.
Right.
If they're good, get them in there and have that state just a blanket refusal.
Right.
Can you imagine everybody who loved freedom? I'm telling you what, if Georgia tomorrow passed a bill saying from this day forward, we will refuse to cooperate or at all recognize any unconstitutional act of the federal government, I'm going to tell you what, by the end of the week, I'm living in Georgia.
Right. You know, you bring up a great point. Again, in the state of Georgia, we're Republican-led, highly active in the GOP, or at least was. But again, you start speaking like that accountability, you know, you're going to get your hand slapped because it's all about the vote. It's all about protecting the brand. And, you know, I have seen this state suffer from what I call the corporatocracy, where it doesn't even matter. The Republicans clearly in this state, the leadership, have no interest in supporting the people and the communities. It's all about business. It's all about what can you do on a corporate, you know, level. And so we're coming up to a slate in 2026 where instead of finding the best and the brightest and the ones that have the greatest ideas, we are being like spoon-fed sort of a carousel of who's next in line. And I cannot bring myself any longer to leverage my vote because my vote is powerful. And if these people cannot deliver on what we're talking about, they're going to continue to ignore their own constituents and do whatever they want, I don't know how I can cast a vote regardless of party.
Right.
And it seems to be I think it's a growing debate because we have huge election issues in this state. We are still on a Dominion voting system. We've been largely ignored, even regardless of the federal executive orders. So I think that's an important point you bring up. We're going, as the people, have to start leveraging our vote in order to get these people down to our level, you know?
Yeah, and one of the things that Madison explained is vote with your feet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you find that this state is just irredeemable, vote with your feet, because that will send a message, right? You see in California, yesterday they had an article where In-N-Out Burger
it's moving to
moves
Tennessee.
its headquarters to Franklin, Tennessee.
Yes, that is...
Dude, that's like Kentucky
huge.
Fried Chicken moving to Maine or
yes,
something.
and I've actually been to an In-N-Out Burger.
I have.
They're great, and
yeah.
I couldn't believe when I saw that.
But that's the thing. These people are fleeing California, and that's sending them. You saw Gavin Newsom try to be at least perceived as more conservative. Right?
Oh yeah, he's on
on Sean Ryan getting a gun
sick.
and
yes,
acting like he knew how to hold it. You know, but the point is
that's the clown show that we deal with every day.
100%. And I think that, but what that demonstrates is, how do you think California reacts?
Mm-hmm.
And when I say California, I mean the government, to In-N-Out Burger, an institution, a multi-billion-dollar institution, putting its processing plant in Texas and its headquarters in Tennessee. Right. That sends a message. And so I think as individuals, we should do likewise. Mm-hmm. You know, if you think that Georgia is irredeemable, I don't think it is. Because I know too many people, citizens of Georgia, who agree with you and me.
Right.
It's just a matter of, y'all have to get motivated just enough. I'm telling you, join the job. I don't get money per person that joins the job. But what happens is, I want everyone to be free. Mm-hmm. I want us to enjoy the full panoply of God-given rights that we have. But we're being prevented from doing that. And ultimately, the accountability lies with us. We have to unite together. And like you said, we have to leverage our votes. Mm-hmm. Show that we're a block of people that refuse to be mocked, moved, or manipulated.
Right.
We won't be.
Yes, and I'd like to give you an example, and this has been near and dear to my heart. And when I say this example, I am not picking on the lieutenant governor of our state. He is going to run for governor. But when you talk about the people of the state, we have some of the best activists I've ever seen in my life.
Right.
Burt Jones comes out with his campaign commercial, and the first thing that he's saying is, first things first, when you elect me for governor, I'm going to remove the state income tax. All right. To a layman person that's not paying attention and not watching this game, that's a great idea. Yeah. Oh my goodness, you're going to take the state income tax away. But from someone like me, who has been watching this unfold down at the Capitol, you're trying to tell me that as the position of the lieutenant governor, with another year left in this cycle, that you cannot sit down in a committee right now and have this thing done by the next legislative session, and we could squash this. So several of us called this out. Mr. Jones and I've invited him to the show. We're not buying this. You are in power now. You have the capability. You can reap all the glory. But why are we quid pro quoing something as important as that 2 years down the road? And I'll be darned if they come out with some report yesterday, as a matter of fact, said that they're going to be opening a state committee this summer. So I say that because it's not me that did it or single-handedly, but our voices really do matter. What you're saying, if if we weren't just in here talking about this, people need to understand how effective they can be if they can just get motivated and do it.
And it doesn't take much, but you have to stop looking to Washington, D.C. Because everybody, you can talk to people, what do they say? I'm a right Marjorie Taylor Greene. She will never see that.
Yeah, I
I'm sorry for you.
Will.
But you have a state rep and a state senator that, I don't know about you, but my state rep, I know where he works, down the street. I can drive to his house. I could knock on his door. He'll answer. He's a real estate agent, right? I can talk to him, and there's fewer people than in a congressional district,
right?
And I can explain. So but don't look to Washington to do it. Look to your state to say, within the sovereign borders of Georgia, we will not recognize unconstitutional acts of the federal government.
Right.
And once you do that, then you recognize that you have state legislators that you can do like you're talking about. You can tell them, hey, you know what? You could do this today if you wanted to,
right.
Because all politicians make these promises. Because ultimately what? They count on you're going to forget. In 2 years, who's going to remember that he said that?
Right.
And if you bring it up, what's he going to say? Well, I tried, but boy, these Democrats won't let me get anything done. That's what he'll say, whether it's true or not. And what will the Republican? Oh, yeah, it's true. The Democrats are keeping us from, and everybody keeps on like they were.
Right.
But if you push it like y'all did and get him to say, oh, okay, well, we need to do something now, that makes a big difference. And you saw that it actually, and this is the thing, it does work, but you'll never know that if your idea of political activity is watching Fox News and posting on Facebook.
That's true.
I mean, I don't mean to disrespect anybody.
No.
But I'm just saying, if you were to join with other people, just in so much as copy and paste and send.
Absolutely.
And that's it.
Absolutely. We share this stuff all the time. We were hot and heavy on, because we're learning the game now. We're learning how legislative processes is.
Yeah.
The start of session, we actually go down now every year, opening day. And I do want to ask you your opinion. Do you know State Senator Colton Moore and what happened to Colton in January? So now that you're in Georgia, you'll be around. We had a state senator that was essentially blocked from going into the House chamber during one of their joint sessions because a year earlier, given his time to yield on the floor, he had some unfavorable things to say about the late Speaker of the House that had passed away, which was not only true and verified, but the current Speaker didn't like it, so he wrote a resolution blocking him from that House chamber.
Wow.
And prior to that particular day, they had a meeting. The meeting went well, and they said, you're not going in here for your joint session. And he said, yes, I am. And long story short, he was down there. He was physically assaulted and blocked from going into that chamber.
Wow.
And arrested and put in the Fulton County Jail. So I want to make sure that I get you some of the footage. We were actually down there that day. But it's a huge deal in Georgia. I don't think this has ever happened before, that a state senator has been unconstitutionally blocked from doing his due duty. So I didn't know if you knew
I hadn't heard about that. I mean, I would almost bet the farm that violates Georgia's Constitution.
It
and
does.
That's something that the CEO of the John Birch Society, Wayne Morrow, who is a citizen of this state of Georgia, something he pushes big time, and that I think is an important program, is to get to know your state constitution.
Right.
Because boy, when I testified before the Tennessee State Senate on, they had a nullification bill, a blanket nullification bill, and I quoted part of the Tennessee state constitution, and some of those senators had no idea what I was quoting. They're like, I don't remember reading that in the Constitution, and I said it's like Article 3. It's like one of the state constitution, but they didn't know that. And so I think that, is it Colton Moore, you said? Yeah, I think that probably almost certainly violates the Georgia state constitution, and it could be violative of other things. It could be Fourth Amendment search and seizure issue. I don't know.
Well, it's come down. He's already had a criminal case that's been thrown out. Of course, the judge saw that there was no intent for criminality. There's other things in the making. I believe even a class action lawsuit, but the powers that be really don't. They're not acting on this in this state. It's
well, you just gotta. Yeah, you've just got to get people organized enough to make sure that they know that. Because that's the thing, I had one of my friends the other day ask me in desperation, because he feels like there's no hope. And I told him, I'm like, there is hope, because we've got a generation of kids who we can teach them. If we take those kids out of those indoctrination camps that you call school, and you have their mom and dad teach them the truth at home and the gospel at church, and you put them on that path, when they get old enough, they will stand up for liberty in ways that you and I never did. And I said, and so we it's not beyond hope. But his question was, what could they possibly do that would cause us to stand up against it? And, I don't have an answer for him. But I do know that there's a lot of people who stand up against even the slightest little bit of tyranny, right? The founding fathers they had a saying in Latin that they would say, obsta principis, which in Latin means stop it as soon as you see it start. Right? Obsta, like obstacle, principis, principle,
like
beginning.
A cancer, it spreads.
Exactly. So, John Adams, in a famous letter, he said, tyranny, as soon as you see it, you got to stamp it out. So where are we at this point? It's a big, big tree at this point. So what do? Do we spend time trimming the branches? No, we've got to start hacking at the roots.
Right, absolutely.
We've got to start hacking at the roots. And the way you do that is, like James Madison said, at the end of Federalist 46, he says, look, at the end of the day, he says, I hope Americans would react to an American traitor with the same force as they reacted to a British traitor.
Well, yeah, and I know we're not going to get into that, but that remains to be seen. We're in what I call an alternate reality at this point. With the last 2 weeks it's happened, so obviously we want accountability, we want justice in the right way, and hopefully we will be provided that. Because
I hope so. And I mean, if there's anyone out there who hears your show, and I hear that it's a growing show. People tell me, they're like, yeah, make sure you go on there. And I'm happy to. It's awesome to be here with you. But people that listen, take that time to let your voice be heard by the right people, that you're not going to stand for one of your, elected representatives being muzzled.
That's right.
This way, particularly not only muzzled, but incarcerated. That's insane.
Put in jail.
Yeah, that's actually insane. That's the kind of stuff that happens in banana republics.
Yeah, I'm going to make sure and give you the footage.
Yes,
now that we're connected. So, I want to know. I want people to know how can they reach out to your work? Where is your work at? Online? You have a website?
Well, my stuff is mostly behind the scenes. Okay. I do write for. I say that now. I have a monthly column in the New American called Wolverton's Warning, and it's just a column that I write every month that is the kind of thing that only the New American would publish. It's polemical, it's in your face, it's calling it like I see it, which I'm so grateful to the publisher Steve Bonta and the editor Gary Benoit. They not only allow but encourage me to write that article every month. But if you go to thenewamerican.com, and you can look Joe Wolverton, just put my name in the search bar.
Gotcha.
And then, like I say, I have several books. You can go to Amazon and put my name in, and all my books are for sale on Amazon. Yeah, and but they're also for sale at shopjbs.org. Shop, like going shopping, Shop JBS, like John Birch Society, shopjbs.org. All my books are on there, plus access to all these resources. But I'm going to tell you, the best thing to do is join, because the minute you join, it triggers this reaction from the organization that puts you in touch with people that can give you the resources and direction that you need to help you from feeling powerless and helpless and rudderless. Which I think that, because to me, as what was I, 19 when I joined, that was such a huge deal to me, man, because I wanted to be involved. I had no idea. You know, I was a political science major and wanted to go to law school, wanted to be involved in politics. I had no idea how to do that. Joined the John Birch Society, and next thing you know, I'm, getting invitations to talk to senators, and just because they opened that, my chapter leader said, here, write this guy, go to the Capitol building and go to this. I had no idea how to go to a committee meeting. I joined. Chapter leader's like, hey, they're talking about, and I can't remember what it was now. Next thing I'm sitting there, it was about licensing, professional licensing. And there I was sitting in a committee of, the state senate. And I'm like, wow. Like a few weeks ago, I would have had no idea how to do something like this. I joined the John Birch Society, my chapter leader, boom, right there. And that made me feel, not only made me feel, but it actually was a way for me to make a difference. Whether I won or lost was immaterial. At least now I was actually in the fight. Right. Rather than being in the bleachers, rah, 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 I was down on the field.
Gotcha.
Win or lose, like the Spartans, and I see you have like Spartan stuff in here. The Spartans used to have a saying, which I love. Spartan mothers would tell their sons before they went out to battle, come home with your shield or on it.
Right.
You win or die trying.
That's right.
Come home with your shield or come home with your brethren carrying your corpse on your shield.
Yeah.
You win or you die trying.
Man.
And I think if we had that attitude, right? That I'm going to put a little bit of time into preserving my liberty. Because at the end of the day, that's the deal. I think we're all going to be held accountable by God.
That's right.
I think being born in America, someday we're going to find out what an enormous advantage and blessing that was. Well, it's my opinion, my personal opinion, that God will hold us accountable for those things. And so I don't want to sit there with the Savior and have him say, boy, I'm looking at this list of stuff I gave you. That's a long list, Joey. What'd you happen to do with all that? And me not have an answer from my Lord. I don't want to turn this into church, but I think that the same thing could be for an atheist who would just prefer to be left alone.
Right.
If you prefer to be left alone, you're going to have to help us a little bit.
That's right.
You're going to have to get in the fight for a little while, because the idea is we can join together, we can win, and then we can all go back home and be left alone.
That's right. Man, that's poetic, man. You nailed it.
That's what we have to do.
People think that we're a little crazy, like, why do you do what you do? And I'm like, well, living in this country and then watching it just being flushed down the toilet, it feels like it's my responsibility. If we want to save this, God will provide us a shovel, but he's not going to dig this hole. And we've got to dig ourselves out. And I don't expect everybody to do it, but like you said, even the laziest forms of activism, getting involved.
Yep.
We are trying to start a chapter here. We're getting very close. And by the way, if anybody out there wants more information, you can contact me about John Birch. I believe in this. I believe in what it stands for and how it's moving. And so we just hope we can grow it.
Less government, more responsibility, and with God's help, a better world. How is that not?
Exactly.
I don't care who you are, because I'm I'm telling you, I talk to a lot of people, and I come from a long line of circuit preachers, and I tend to get a little bit of the Holy Ghost sometimes when I talk. But I talk to a lot of people who are in the fight who are atheists. Like literally,
Sure,
they
I
are
used
atheists.
to be. I mean,
Yeah, many of my comrades in arms are atheists, but they are fighting as hard as I am, because at the end of the day, when we win, they're going to go home and be happy, and I'm going to go home and be happy.
that's right.
And that's all that matters.
That is 100%
But you've
right.
got to get involved. And guys, please, it's, the John Birch Society, the proof's in the pudding, man. We've been doing it for 6 decades.
That's right.
And we've been getting it right the whole time. And now is the time. Because look, Roy, the truth is, we've been eating fruit from trees we didn't plant and drinking water from wells we didn't dig.
Yeah.
And it's not that we just didn't dig the wells or plant the trees. We hadn't even taken care of them.
No.
So we got to start taking care of that well that our fathers dug for us. We got to start pruning that tree that our fathers planted for us, so that fruit will be ripe and delicious again. And it's up to us. Or we can sit by and let it grow to rot and let that well water become poisonous.
I'd rather come home on my shield, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Wow. Well, that was powerful, Joe. Man, all right, guys. So you heard it here. We're sitting with Joe Wolverton. You can go to thenewamerican.com. You can shop jbs.org. He's got books out. I encourage you to use this interview as more to share around your communities. Let's start building up a network in the John Birch Society. We are actively working on it as we speak up here, and super excited. I don't think it, like he said, 6 decades. It's, Alex Jones is out there talking about it. I mean, how could it be wrong? So I always give my guests the last word, so I'm going to let you have the last word. Anything you'd like to say to the audience?
Well, I just really would want to encourage you to think about the blessings that you've experienced from your freedom, and then decide today, do you owe anything for what you've been given? And if you think you do, if you think that you have a debt to God, to your ancestors, to whomever, because of the liberty that they've given to you, do something about it today. Join the John Birch Society. You will instantly find the help and the resources you need. You can do it from home. You don't have to commit to anything other than you want to help fight the good fight. Because it is, it's the right thing to do, and we need you. The last word, I guess, Roy, is we need you. We need everybody. We've got to win this. I do not want my children having their children born on a FEMA camp.
Amen.
I don't want to be the most principled man in an orange jumpsuit.
Right.
Let's all get together, let's unite, and let's get this done. And the best way to jumpstart that is through an organization that has over 60 years of successful track record, the John Birch Society.
Wow. Well, thank you, Mr. Wolverton. It's been my pleasure to host you today.
Appreciate you.
This is only by the providence of God that we're connected, and it's every day. So, folks out there, again, you can get in touch with me if you want more information. We are actively starting a chapter up now. I can't wait to get this rolling. And thank you for watching, and you guys have a good evening.